Hey everyone, and welcome to Ricky's Rock Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Workshop of Filthy Creation by Richard Gatz. Now this is a book that was published by Dx's Press, and I had a really good time with it. This kind of takes some of the threads from the classic Frankenstein story by Mary Shelley, published in 1818, when she was a teenager, by the way. And I had just read that book, trying to refresh, so I can do some comparison with this one. And I really enjoyed that double feature. I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that I really like here. But before I get into that, I'm going to read a quote from the original Frankenstein book, because I think it's a great introduction for Workshop. Now this is the perspective from Dr. Victor Frankenstein. In a solitary chamber, or rather cell, at the top of the house and separated from all the other apartments by a gallery and staircase, I kept my workshop of filthy creation. My eyeballs were starting from their sockets and attending to the details of my employment. The dissecting room and the slaughterhouse furnished many of my materials, and often did my human nature turn with loathing from my occupation, whilst still urged on by eagerness which perpetually increased, I brought my work near to a conclusion. So the reason I read that is because one of the things that I expected going into that novel was the actual creation of the monster or the creature. Although that does play a pivotal role in the original Frankenstein book, it is not the primary focus, and compared to all the internal monologue and all the emotional stuff that's going on in there, it doesn't get as much time. Which is why I really enjoyed this book, because Richard Gatz's Workshop of Filthy Creation is not shy when it comes to all the science and the experimentation on humans and reanimation. So the first chapter in here serves as a really nice introduction. We start in the year 1803, and the science done on body parts and stuff is very akin to what was in the original Frankenstein book with galvanism and stuff like that. But then it fast forwards to the year 1879, and there's a lot of in-world advancements when it comes to the science experiments and the attempts for reanimation. And so we have this character. Her name is Maria, and she has a kind of a mysterious background because she is actually considered an artificial human, or someone who was created entirely in a lab. And part of the fun of the novel is trying to figure out what happened to her. She's under the protection of a biologist called Professor Hobson, and you kind of have to figure out why he's in possession of this person, this brand new person. This takes place in the hustle and bustle of London. She looks human enough to blend in with the crowd, but she is described as having like otherworldly features, kind of a weird looking face, these transparent blue eyes, modeled skin, and really long arms and fingers with no nails. Now Professor Hobson has 3 friends that he considers his like confidants. They all have different occupations. One is a detective, one is a doctor, and the other is like a really well-to-do businessman, or so it seems. And so we have the powers of good over there. The businessman is kind of morally challenged, and he is like in the gray area. But then we also have the people that kind of created Maria. We have the main figurehead, the main villain. His name is Wilhelm von Fracken, and he has like a bunch of minions, and they belong to a group called the Promethean Society, and they are secretly placed around different areas of the world, and they're all trying to create like a Frankenstein type creature. So this is basically like a sci-fi horror adventure story where we are following Maria as she's trying to navigate the sides of good and evil and the morally challenged. And it's like really entertaining. Like I said, I really like the detailed descriptions of like all these evil, seedy people making all these crazy experiments. It gets pretty wild as to what they do and the lengths they're willing to go through in order to achieve their scientific advancing goals, and creating artificial life and stuff like that. I thought it was just a really creative story, and I really like how it kind of connects to the original Frankenstein story from 1818. I thought it was a really unique way to thread these two stories together. So Maria, being an artificial being created in a lab, she has unique qualities. She's very direct and she's very smart. She has like a photographic memory. She has no need for sleep, or very little sleep. And she's just trying to figure out what it means to be a person, to be alive. And but she also has dreams or nightmares, which I'll read here so you can kind of get a taste of the writing. The rooms became smaller. Each one seemed to fold back in on itself. The ambient light, the flickering yellow pool from elegant candelabras, grew steadily dimmer. She knew she was heading in the wrong direction, moving deeper into the ground with each successive room instead of closer to the surface. The rooms narrowed into passageways, claustrophobic and confining, sloping down into smaller and smaller spaces. Soon she was crawling on hands and knees, then on her belly, pulling herself along, twisting around from space to space, tighter and tighter. She was going in circles, feeling her feet and then her legs curve around at an impossible angle that should have met her clawing fingers. Dark and darker, deeper into the ground, smelling the worm-filled slime that strained to burst through the wooden boards that pressed hard against her sides and back. Arms flung ahead of her, her fingers clawed at a tiny gap, the only source of air, the only escape. 2 fingertips wide, she pulled and squeezed, suffocating, knowing she was stuck, knowing she was helpless. And out of her mouth came a scream, a shaking howl of terror. And out of the scream came people, swarming out of her, biting through her skin to escape her in the same way she had tried to escape her underground prison. They tore her flesh, bursting out between her ribs, her knuckles, her vertebrae, hundreds upon hundreds, legs, teeth, nails. Her face split, hands clawed at her, mouths wailed. A gush of human beings crawled out of the disintegrating remains of her body. She felt herself dissolve, unable to cry out. They wept. They gibbered, they laughed in hysteria. And there, watching her suffer, from the first moment of the nightmare to its end, the eye above. Huge and unblinking, dark and shining, its iris a black bottomless well. Staring, accusing her, judging her, gloating and delighting in her death, so richly deserved. The nightmare always left her drained and tearful. She curled up on the counterpane, grimly staring at the daylight arriving at her window. So really, really cool writing. I really enjoyed the description of terror. And I really like the villain in here, Von Fracken. He was despicable. He gets it. He's like a cockroach, man. Like all these crazy things are happening to him, and he just finds a way to just survive and to just keep up his good fight of trying to create his evil plan. And that's one of the other things that I really liked about this novel. It's not just about this side of evil that's trying to capture Maria and decipher what made her work, how they can replicate her. It wasn't just that. Von Fracken, he actually has other bigger ideas, and I thought that Richard Gatz did a really good job of actually foreshadowing his eventual evil plan at the end, and which I won't spoil, but I noticed that he was describing a lot about the hustle and bustle in London, all these busy people who are working, and just like this crazy industrial period, and how it fed into the overarching idea at the end. I thought that was really brilliantly done, and I really highly recommend this story for anyone who likes like sci-fi, horror, adventure. It definitely gets kind of scary, and I thought the ultimate resolution at the end, the third act, was really well done. I was on the edge of my seat. I really like how there's a lot of characters in here and they all have their own personalities. That's one of the drawbacks of the original Frankenstein, is that although there's a lot of people in there, you only really follow Victor Frankenstein and his creature. You only get these two sides of the same coin. But here in Workshop of Filthy Creation, all these characters that are introduced have their own agency, and their choices really do change the angle of where the story is going. So it kind of kept everything off kilter in a really enjoyable way. So I really strongly suggest checking this one out if that feels like it's something up your alley. And I also have some other really good news. So I'm going to be reading here very soon Dracula. And after I read Dracula, we have Richard Gad's doing a vampire story that kind of harkens back to Dracula a little bit in one way or another, similarly to how the Workshop of Filthy Creation does with Frankenstein. It's called The Eater of Flies, and it's going to come out later this year. And I'm really excited to read this one too. So yeah, come back here to check that out eventually. Subscribe and like and comment. I like hearing from you guys. And don't forget that I have an Instagram page, and that's where I actually do my written reviews. And you also get a preview of what is coming down the pike for videos, because I do everything written first. And I also post a lot of stories on there about stuff that I have coming in and things that I'm reading, and just random ideas about writing and reading, which I really love. So I'd appreciate you guys following me there as well, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.